Okay. Tell us something about yourself. Why are you in the boxing game?
It's in the blood, Frank. My dad was an amateur boxer in Chicago in the 1940s. My grandfather thought of himself as a tough man. He would occasionally drive around in Chicago, not looking for action, but if he saw some kind of a bare knuckles thing, he told me this story, so it's got to be true. He would engage. And so it's just not that I'm some kind of big boxer. I sparred a little when I was younger just to get a feel for it. But my dad loved it. My grandfather loved it. All my uncles loved boxing. I was like brainwashed. And then growing up in the 60s, to get a little, it was a little controversial because I loved Muhammad Ali in the 1960s. And I was living in Oklahoma at the time. And I would spout off about Muhammad Ali around 1965. Not a lot of people like Muhammad Ali back in those days, and so I was not very popular with some of the parents. But it's a long story, but my dad came to my defense and said, my son can support anybody he wants, so thank you, Dad, for that. So it's just been something that I've always loved, always found it endlessly fascinating, a mano-a-mano individual sport that just requires so much sacrifice, guts and determination, and it just I never get tired of it. I can talk about it endlessly, obviously, as I'm doing now, but it just I never had a chance, I don't think, because of the family background. My dad lived very close to Comiskey Park, when they called it that, in Chicago, so he actually walked down to Comiskey Park to see Joe Louis knock out James J. Braddock when he was 10. And in those days, you could do that. And they let him in. So he saw the knockout in the 8th round. So I heard about that story all my life. And so, yeah, I love it. I always will. It just fascinates me to no end.
Mr. Farmer, what about you?
Yes. Well, I guess my my love of boxing started when I was a tot. No, I'm just playing. Well, actually, some time ago, and it started with Muhammad Ali. And that's what we knew because he was like the people's champion. And there was something about him. He was very brash, but he backed up what he said.
Gee, brash.
Right. Well, I mean, but just from the standpoint of him being able to, a lot of people didn't like him,
right.
You know, as John said. And he came out and he backed it up. And you would say, most people were like, would you just shut up, be quiet? We don't want to hear from you. And he just had a way. He was very confident, which went a long way with me. I must be the greatest. I told you I'm a bad man. And just to hear him back it up, and then the morals, the more I learned about him and what he stood for, even though he was often on an island by himself, did a lot for me. And that just kind of evolved into watching him fight and becoming the fighter that he was. And then around that time, as I continued to age, I realized when I was watching boxing or listening to the boxing on the radio or what have you, how great that time was in regards to the talent. I mentioned to you about you have a guy like a Jerry Quarry. A lot of people don't know who the hell that is, but he would have been a champion, no doubt. Right now, he'd been a couple, two-time champion at least, just because the way he fought and he had heart. But because he came around at the time where there were so many talented individuals, somewhat better than him, he never got the glory that he deserves. And to me, that's a travesty because I think we were in that age or at that time growing up. Once I started to watch other boxers and whatnot, I really started to appreciate it. I was like, man, those guys could go get it. They were tough, and nobody ran from anybody. Even if you knew you were going to lose, you got in the ring, and you fought. So that was kind of the catalyst for me in regards to watching boxing, and then it continued to grow. Whereas I found, I'll date myself, I guess, but another time that really was inspirational was the '76 Olympics. I was in a place called Goodwater, Alabama, at a family reunion. I'm not gonna tell you how old I was, but it was so hot. We just stayed in the room, and the only thing we could do was watch television. The Olympics were on, and I just fell in love with boxing. I was following the names of Sugar Ray Leonard, the Spinks brothers, Howard Davis. It was just awesome. And then to watch those careers, I had somebody else to hold on to, and it just kept going on and on. Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, guys like that, and then even to the point of Floyd Mayweather. A lot of people don't like him, but the factor that he's been able to do what he did from a defensive standpoint, I thought was brilliant after we left Mike Tyson. So all of those things, and when you look at the contrast, and most importantly, I think the boxing thing that I really appreciate, particularly having a chance to really get to know Buster Douglas personally, and even as a friend, is it takes a real man to step into the ring. So, granted, I never really did it. I kind of slap box, messed around a little bit. But anybody, or man or woman, that steps into the ring, I always give them kudos. I don't care if they get knocked out in 20 seconds or whatever. It takes a real man or woman to step into that ring because all bets are off, and it's the real deal. Those are grown folks stepping in there. And I always respected that. I don't care whatever you say, how many fights a person lost or whatever. Well, if they had the nerve to train in front of everybody and then step in that ring, put all your, risk losing everything that you have after training, yeah, that's special, man.
It's true.
Well, and I'm kind of from the same school. It's as a sports guy, I followed everything. I'm the kid in the schoolyard that was talking about rugby and lacrosse. What do you know? Oh, did you see lacrosse? That's pretty cool. I just followed everything. And boxing was just one of those things where it was so much different than everything else. You had to do it by yourself. No matter what your trainer said, no matter what your coach said, no matter this or that, once you got in that squared circle, that was it. You were there by yourself. And it was fantastic. And I, growing up the same way, watching those guys and, what's going to happen now? We've got Frazier, we've got Foreman, we've got this, we've got that, we've got Bob Foster. You had so many guys with names that just jumped out like Jerry Quarry. It was just fantastic. And my history in boxing, you're going to love this. I've thrown 2 punches in my life, 2 left jabs. Kid was messing with me in 8th grade for some stupid reason. Found him in the hallway, threw 2 really nice left jabs. And that was the end of it. That's it. That's the last. My reputation was cemented from there. Don't mess with Frank. He's got a good left hand. But that was it. Now, can I throw another punch after that? Didn't have to. But that's the idea of it still had to solve the problem. They had to figure it out. So that's what boxers do. They solve problems in a way that we don't. You dunk on somebody, great. You hit a home run, that's fine. But you've got to solve a problem with that guy right in front of you. And that to me is, that's the essence of it. You watch people solve problems right there or not. And you can't run from it because if you don't solve the problem, you get knocked the hell out. So that's what I enjoy about it. You have to be able to be there. And it is more mental than people think, than the average fan thinks. Because you have to be able to think your way through the situation. Because if you can't, there's an opening. You can't figure out where the opening is. Or you could get, as we talked about, Charles, that Pacquiao Barrera fight. Mm-hmm. Or Marquez, I'm sorry, the Marquez fight, the first Marquez fight. Marquez had to figure out how not to get hit with that straight left. Mm-hmm. And he ended up getting a draw of it. If he hadn't figured that out, that fight's over. So he had to figure out, and Pacquiao didn't figure out how to throw anything else other than that. So what looked like a done fight right away ended up being a heck of a fight. And you see that happen all the time.
One of the greats of all times, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, can I just say, too, I was more of a choker, man. I like choking people. Anyway, that's another.
All right. Well, now that we've said more than we probably should have, because I don't even want to go any further on that one. Anyhow, we're here today to talk about the welterweights, the welterweights of today, and there are a slew of them. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the most loaded division out there right now, and for good reason. You have a lot of champs and a lot of challengers and a lot of fights coming up. So I put a couple of graphics together here. See if I can screw it up here. Let's start with Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is 24-0. What's his next fight coming up, guys?
Kind of a big one against Mikey. Yeah, Mikey, March 16th.
Yeah. So what do you think here? Is this the man, or is this one of the men? John, what do you think?
Me? See, Errol still has some issues that I'm not. I mean, he is a tremendous fighter, but I'd like to see if somebody can take him into some deep waters. I mean, the fight with Kell Brook was very interesting because it wasn't obviously we knew it going in that he wasn't going to roll over Kell Brook. But then Errol Spence kind of kicked it into another gear, which really impressed me. So he is obviously one of the top guys. My only question about him, and I've heard this for years because, being on the Ringside Boxing Show, there was some question about his chin. And I haven't seen that as a pro. I haven't seen him. I don't even think I've seen him get hurt. I've seen him maybe once or twice, right? Kind of like Andre Ward early in his career got wobbled. You remember, and went down against Darnell Boone. That was a shocker. But he seems to improve pretty much in every fight, and he fights downhill. Mikey said he saw something. I love that because that goes back to 1936 with Max Riley and Joe Louis. Right. And Robert Garcia was on our show, and he said we saw something very dramatic. What did he see? Other guys get knocked out, getting destroyed. There's something. I don't think they're just saying that. I think there is something they think they can exploit. Mikey is so much smaller, though. I mean, you saw that when they're standing next to each other, right. The cameraman probably has to tilt the camera just to get Mikey in the shot, I mean, but Mikey is a great fighter too. So I'm not going to just say Errol Spence is going to roll over him. I think the key is going to be the first time that Errol Spence nails Mikey, can he take it? If he can take it and then pop him back, hit him with a couple of Frank Gordon jabs, pop, pop. Maybe
that's all it has to tell us too.
A right hand's even better, and get his respect. Then we might have what you were talking about, Frank, where the fight might become a little bit of a thinking thing, where and then Errol's going to be like, wow, okay, this guy can take it. So we gotta figure out where to go there. Mikey was in a couple of tough fights earlier in his career, and his last one against Welterweight was before that, I think, pretty tough. I think he's ready for something like this. I think mentally he's thinking that this is really going to be if I'm going to win, I'm going to have to go to hell and back. That's what Mikey's thinking. Errol and then you see it's like a flip thing with Errol. Mikey's got to be able to take it. He's got to be able to take it when Errol starts nailing him, because he's going to. Mikey's a pretty good defensive fighter, but Errol is just, he's relentless at times. So that's what's very compelling to me is it's a respect versus can I absorb the blows? Can I last? So I'm thinking Mikey's going to box, try to stay out of range, but then try to surprise him with some right hands. He's the old game of the old kryptonite, the right hand and the southpaw. So I think obviously Errol has advantages and he's probably going to win. But I think Mikey could surprise if he can take Errol later into the fight. Not that he's going to knock him out or anything, but he might be able to sneak in a decision. But obviously Errol is the big favorite to win.
Charles, I know that you're a big Errol Spence fan. So what are the strengths that he brings to not only this fight, but to welterweight division?
Well, he has, I think, a great ability to change. To make change in the boxing in the bout that he's in, and a lot of times when it was mentioned about Kell Brook, and he had to kind of change his strategy a little bit because he's starting to get hit, and you kind of wonder, is he in trouble? And then all of a sudden, John mentioned about that next gear. So he has the ability to change, more of a technician than just a regular one-trick pony, as we like to call him. I think he's strong. He has the ability to knock you out. I do think that the factor that he has no fear, you can just tell. Even when he was getting hit by Kell Brook, it was like, oh, no big deal, we're good. And granted, some people might think that's an issue with him as far as his chin, but I'll say that, and it might cause him some problems. He might take too many chances because he was getting hit pretty well. And I was like, wow, is he in trouble? He was like, no, we're good. I'm like, are you sure? But he eventually moved on and won the fight. But I think that there, I also think too, at times he has the ability to show he has strong defensive skills. I don't know if he got that working with Floyd or whatever. And I think some of that might have worn off on him. And I'll just say this, I know I keep comparing this, but this is a guy too that I'm sure he's learned some lessons. But the fact is that he used to spar with Floyd Mayweather and they would get to the ring. You can't tell me that you didn't learn. You can't tell me. And then they said at times he was bringing it to Floyd. Yeah. So we're in there with a guy that's considered one of the greatest champions of all time. You got to learn something as you move forward to make bigger championship fights.
Right. And that to me is you're looking at it exactly right. If you're looking at who you're working with and who you're allowed to work with, that has a lot to do with it. I mean, obviously, I look good because you guys make me look good, that kind of thing. So if you work with the champ, it's going to rub off on you at some point, or you're not there for much longer. So if you're going to spar with him for more than a day, you must have done something right.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, that was wise. That was really smart of Errol Spence to do that. Because you guys are right. When you fight, when you spar with somebody who's like a Floyd Mayweather, you might not even know it, but you're learning.
Right.
So that was really bright of him to do that, because it just rubs off on you. If Mayweather's such a great fighter, you're going to learn things even without knowing it. So
right,
good for him.
We're going to move to Danny Garcia, 34, 2-0. And now we're looking at, is this another? Does he belong? I guess that's the question. Does he belong? Charles, does he belong in this conversation?
I would say yes. I think that he's earned the right because what he's done in the past. I think lately, though, we're still questioning where is the Danny Garcia that of old? Because before he was a guy that would fight tough. I think about the time when he fought Matisse, and I thought Matisse, from what he had done in the past with others, could really give him the business. But Danny Garcia found a way. But I think at some point, maybe it's the last couple of fights, one thing I did see is I kind of wondered what there was an issue with him waiting too long,
right,
and to throw punches. And I think his last couple of fights, you saw that where he was waiting and he kept making excuses. The other thing too is his ability to adapt, I think, was missing for me. And I think about the Thurman fight where Thurman just threw something totally different at him, where he's like, okay, I'm not going to really try to knock you out. I'm going to move around in a box. I'm going to frustrate you, but I'm going to counterpunch you early enough, and I'm going to make you chase me, and you're going to look bad because you can't hit me. Then we revert over to the Shawn Porter fight, and he did like the same thing. Totally different. You're like, man, Shawn Porter's doing what? He's boxing?
Yeah.
Right.
Almost as if he saw something that from that earlier fight, that tape, and he did that. So I guess my point is, though, I'm looking for Danny Garcia to face someone and show us the Danny Garcia old, or even if he's changed, be able to adapt. The other thing too is he's from Philadelphia, and what we know about most Philadelphia fighters, they bring it.
Right.
They don't wait, even if they're wrong. They don't wait. They won in the past. You see, they come forward, and lately it seems like I don't know if his dad is too much in his ear or whatever, but he's just not as free flowing as he was before. And I think that might be frustrating for him and then frustrating for us as well.
Do you think that's an age thing, or is it just?
I want to say no, but it could be. But then again, I'm going to be real with you. Now, people not going to like this. I'm going to say it anyway. We know what's going on with Adrian Broner. He keeps saying the same thing. He's going to be first, and he's not. I'm seeing a little bit of that in Danny Garcia. No disrespect comparing the two, but I'm talking about skill-wise. I'm still waiting on him to be first in a lot of instances.
Well, and that's where I was going to go. That's the one person that always pops into my head that has that ability, or at least shown that ability, and then just stands there. And we mentioned Mikey Garcia again. Just stands there like, hit me. I'll think about no, hit me again. You can't in this division. You can't win a fight that way. The way I see it, you've got too many guys there's too much action going on, and you just can't sit there and let the other guy put, rounds in the bank. So, John, do we see Danny Garcia being able to climb to the top of the heap here, or are we just kind of, he's got to this level, but that's about it?
Danny's always been kind of an enigma to me. I've never been totally impressed with him. I was impressed. I was impressed when he beat Matisse. He was losing to Mir Khan pretty decisively, as we remember, and then he caught him, and that was it. He's a counterpuncher. That's his thing. What Charles was saying is right on. I noticed the same thing, but what I've also noticed recently is, and it's just a feeling, I'm playing Dr. Phil here, but a little boxing psychobabble, but I think he's lacking the same passion that he had a few years ago. He's achieved quite a bit. He's got a little kid. I mean, not everybody can just say, okay, I'm going to be gone for the next 6 months,
right,
or whatever. Like Rocky Marciano, he'd fight, he'd rest for 2 weeks, or if that, go right back to the gym, even if he didn't have a fight, and live there. He wouldn't even come home. It takes so much sacrifice, like we were talking about, to stay at that level. And Danny's a good fighter. I don't think he's ever been a great fighter. I think he's good. I think he's a good counterpuncher. But it's true. Even when he was fighting Brandon Rios, I think a guy he should have beat pretty easily. Rios was having his moments against him because Danny would just wait and take punches. And he's a good defensive fighter. He wasn't necessarily getting hit, but he was being outworked. And that's how you lose fights. And, you know, I thought he got gifted a decision against Mauricio Herrera a number of years ago in Puerto Rico. I thought Herrera's beat him with his jab, but he got the decision. Okay. He's just one of those guys that is always going to be kind of like, well, how good is he really? He's definitely good. But is there another, like we're talking about, another gear? So I don't think there is. I think he's peaked in a sense. He's good.
Is part of that, and this can go a lot of different ways, and we've seen it. When you're trained by a family member, your father, there's, I think, only so much you can do with that. As that relationship changes or matures, or however you want to put it, do you start to get to the point where, as they say in football, you know, we need to hear another voice in those ears? Is there a point where you go, Dad, shut up? You know, I'm tired of listening to you tell me what to do and how to do it. I'm 34-2-0, and I've been at this for a while. And is there any tension there, or is there something that you think maybe that's why he's just not getting over the edge?
Very much could be. I don't. Angel Garcia is, you know, he's pretty good. He's got Danny. I don't know who else that he's trained, that he's improved, and that's what you're saying. I think is that how does Danny improve?
Right.
And I think the world good if he got another trainer. To be honest, I think we're talking about Shawn Porter. Look at Shawn and Ken. I mean, they try different things. That was a great point by Charles. I was waiting to say it, and he took it away from me and ran with it. I was going to say that. Shawn is a great athlete, though. Anybody knows anything about Shawn Porter knows what a great athlete he was, and he still is. So when he came out boxing, it was like, damn. You know, I mean, but if you know about him, you're like, well, that shouldn't be that much of a surprise. He's a great athlete. I don't think Angel Garcia has a plan B in his brain. I don't think, I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just being honest. I think they fight the same way. So if they're planning, they're not thinking, well, let's see, the last time we fought, we got outworked. And Danny will say all those things like Charles was saying, well, I'm going to throw a lot of punches like Adrian Broner says. But then he just falls back in those old habits. And then Angel Garcia slaps him and yells at him, which I find ridiculous myself. But yeah, I think another voice, even though Adrian Broner, look who he had in his corner the last couple.
They didn't listen, right?
But I think Danny probably, well, he might go, look, you know, who are you? But it could help. I don't think it would hurt. Let's just say that. I think another voice, another suggestion, let's try it this way. At this point, you know, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't know. And Charles, you were talking about that extra edge, or not being willing to the Philly fighter edge. Why doesn't that, or how that shouldn't go away, should it?
No, I don't think so. But I think it's things have changed. Because back in the day, you usually had like one successful trainer or one club who was training everybody. And I think Danny Garcia and his dad are a little bit, even though they're from Philly, they're still a little different. They're not like it was back in the day with Joe Frazier. Right. We kind of knew how that rolled. So I think they're different. They're trying to be more modern. But I also think too, as you mentioned, that as long as he's under his dad's umbrella, they fight the same way, and they think it's going to still work. And maybe Danny doesn't feel the same way. But I think all of the guys that had their dads in their corner, they kind of evolved. You think about Sugar Shane Mosley, and, you know, finally let his dad, like, okay, that's enough. You need to step back. I'm trying to think also, too, you think about even with Roy Jones Jr.
Right.
He had to push away for him to evolve and become his own man. And, of course, Floyd with his dad, his prison term, whatever. And when his dad came back and replaced his Uncle Roger, his dad kind of took a different approach. It wasn't like, I'm trying to tell you what, boy, you know what I'm telling you what to do, you know, something to that effect, where he was more or less trying to be his dad. He was really his trainer and his coach, and he knew exactly what Floyd needed. So therefore, Floyd was in charge. So I think sometimes the boxers like that, they need to evolve and become their own man. I mean, as you mentioned, John mentioned Danny Garcia has done real well. He lives a good life. He's happy. And maybe maybe that's enough. Maybe he doesn't have that killer instinct anymore. Maybe he's no longer hungry. So you mentioned about the Philly. When I think about the Philly fighters, I think about the old school Philly fighters. He's a new school Philly fighter. So there might be one or two guys like that, but times have changed and everything's not the way it used to be.
I'm trying to think, and I don't think I'm going to think of one, of a Philly counterpuncher. Can you think of one? Yeah, I mean, it should pop into your head.
I like Benny Briscoe a lot. You know, I loved him, and I wanted him to be champion so bad. He wasn't. I can't remember him being much of a counterpuncher, though maybe occasionally, but nobody like Danny Garcia. Danny is a born counterpuncher. Right. That's his game. But you're right. Nobody, Cyclone Hart, Bobby Boogaloo Watts. I mean, all these guys that were just tremendous fighters, and of course, you know, some of the best ones like Joe Frazier with the left hook. They weren't counterpunchers. You're right on.
Yeah, and it just doesn't. I mean, again, it doesn't mean that you have to be Joe Frazier from Philly, but it just seems like there is that extra added. I'm from Philly. I'm coming after you, like Charles said.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, I'm not counting him out. I'm just thinking there's a level that he's not at that I don't think he's going to get to. So
there was a danger.
Yeah,
Frank. There was a danger about Philly fighters. You know, there was a danger about them. People are like, whoa. But Danny doesn't bring that kind of danger. No way.
Right. All right. Moving on to Keith Thurman. Just fought 29. I think that's 29-0-0 now, unless I miscalculated that after the last win. And as Charles said, is willing to do different things. John, what do you think about Keith Thurman?
I like Keith a lot, and it's probably because we've had him again on the other show, and he's so fun to talk about, and he's such a thinker. You know, he knows and he's honest. That's what I really like. He'll say, he even said it was like 2 weeks before the Josecito fight, Josecito Lopez fight, I have my doubts. I don't know, and you don't hear a fighter say that much. Right. I have my doubts. He knew he was going to win, but he didn't know exactly what he was going to bring. You know, like Tiger Woods would say, I didn't bring my A game, you know, and obviously watching Keith, that wasn't his A game. He was rusty. He was a little even sluggish at times, which I've never seen with Keith Thurman. So I love that about the guy because he's so honest. He wants to fight on television. He doesn't want anybody to have to pay. I love that about him. It's so refreshing. As a fighter, he's not really a one-time, really, as he was earlier. He doesn't knock anybody out with one punch. He knocks them down with a combination of punches. But he's a great athlete. He's always fun to watch as far as I'm concerned. And he uses this too. He's another thinker in there, which is impressive because, you know, you roll over 21 fights, you're knocking everybody out and things start changing. You got to be able to go with the flow. You got to be able to change, like Charles said a little while ago. So I was also thinking when I was watching the Josecito Lopez fight, you know, when a guy's off for a while, he does lose something. We're not sure. Obviously Muhammad Ali wasn't the same guy when he came back after 3.5 years. That's always going to be frustrating to us who wonder what Ali would have just dominated that whole period, you know, because he was just, anybody who remembers, who's watched Cleveland Williams fight, sees the elite Muhammad Ali. It was just tremendous. Nobody would have beat him. I mean, Joe Frazier wouldn't have beat him. I don't care. My opinion, but I don't think there's a way he would have beat him.
Not to step away from this the conversation we were planning on having, but that's one of those things where maybe that's the best thing that could have happened, because I'm thinking that he was so dominant that we might have got bored with him. It sets up the drama for the comeback and the rest that goes on. I don't know if you would have had the drama and the character story of the Frazier fights, of the Foreman fights, even the Leon Spinks. If he had just been cruising through for those 3.5 years, we may not have, well, he's going to beat everybody, you know. So
well, it did show, you're right, it did show the heart that he had and the guts, you know. I mean, he had to dig down. He couldn't count on that great talent that he had when he was younger. The older version, he couldn't do it like he did, like any of us. You know, you remember when you're 23, you're playing basketball, then you're playing when you're 32, something's changed. You know, you've lost a little bit. And I was going to use Andre Ward as an example because, you know, out here in the Bay Area, I covered him a lot. And when he came back after all the legal issues and the injuries, you could see something was, he had lost a little bit. So I was thinking about that with Keith. I don't want to say that yet because I want to see how he looks in his next fight. but he's still near the top and everything, and he's wildly talented. But that layoff with those injuries, that hurt. I think that hurt him a little bit. So we just have to see how he looks in his next fight.
And Charles, you mentioned when you got into boxing, that was kind of that when you had those other guys, the Corys and those kind of people. Does that layoff, does that kind of carry over to what we're talking about here as far as, now that we don't have the Keith Thurman that we had of a year and a half, 2 years ago, or however that works out? Does that allow the other people in this division to think, I can take Keith Thurman, when maybe they didn't think that before?
No, I think you're right, because and more evidence is the fact that the recent fight with Lopez. You can't tell me they aren't looking like, yeah, man, did you see him? He got hit a couple times and he was backpedaling, looked like he was in trouble a little bit. So they're watching very closely, like either we're going to find out that he can come back and be sharp again, or if he's that guy that he stepped into the ring like he did with Lopez, I might be able to get him. So I think they're watching very closely. I think the one thing about Keith Thurman is, while the layoff may hurt him, technically as a boxer, he's really skilled. Right. And I think he showed you that the way that he's kind of changed his style by being more sometimes instead of one time, right, by boxing and moving around now, frustrating guys and picking his shots. So I think that's going to allow him to still be one of the top guys. I think the one issue that made this layoff, for him getting older, him getting married, whatever the case may be, John will know a lot more because he's been connected with him and talked to him actually. But I think as we move to hopefully more fights in the upper echelon, the Errol Spence Juniors, that might be when we really get a chance to have Keith Thurman tested again. Because I think for a lot of times, like the Danny Garcia, I think he owns Danny Garcia. I think he knows that. He owns him. Certain guys he will own. But then when you put him in there, like, depending on what fight Shawn Porter will fight, what it will be differently this time. But the Errol Spence Juniors, maybe even a Bud Crawford, Terence Crawford, guys like that, those are the guys that are going to press him. But otherwise, I think he can just kind of come in, do his little dance, do what he wants to do, and still be okay.
And you mentioned the Shawn Porter and the Shawn Porter fight. That's a fight where I'm not going to say it was a draw. I'm not going to say he didn't win. I'm not going to go that far. But that was a close fight. And as far as I thought going in, that Thurman was going to be the action fighter, and it was really Porter who was the action plus fighter. And I don't think that even if you give him the decision, or however you want to look at it, I don't think he was ready for someone to be tougher than him. And I'm not saying that Porter was tougher than him, but he was as tough as him. And if that's what if you lost a step or an inch or whatever you want to call it from that layoff, and Porter's still coming strong, and again, like I said, Bud Crawford and Errol Spence, I don't know if, again, we have to see another fight after the Lopez fight. But I think the fight that we saw from Lopez, he's not at that level, and I don't know if he's dropped down from the level he was at before, but he's not doesn't seem to be at that level of those other guys right now. And like you said, I love the way he promotes a fight. I love the way he talks about the business of fighting and of what he wants to achieve. It just looked like, again, ring rust, I guess you want to call it that, but it just looked like he wasn't quite at that spot just yet. So, we'll see if he goes on. And like you said, Charles, it's the next step. Does he make that next step or not? So we'll see how that plays out. Okay, moving on to the venerable Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao. 61-7-2. Now, Charles, you've got me started with Manny Pacquiao. And as you're so apt to say, I won't tell you how long ago that was to preserve my age. But is it? We're still talking about Manny Pacquiao, and what he come up as a light straw weight. I mean, it seems like forever he's been around, and he's still doing it. Can he still be? Obviously, he's still a champion, though we'll debate what that means. But is he still part of this discussion, or is it just we decided to prop him up over here and make some money off of him, and he can make some money but no. Charles, what do you think? Is it still Is he still a viable part of this division?
Well, I love Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
I just like it. I like his spirit. Ever since the first time I saw him fight, we mentioned about Marquez. I learned a lot about Marquez too, and knowing that these are both Hall of Fame champions, guys who are going to be in the Hall of Famers definitely, and watching that fight, not knowing who the hell they were, they always will have my respect. But I think that Manny's he's almost like an enigma. You like him, he's a fun guy, and he fights hard. In regards to him being on that level, I don't think so. I think everybody knows that too. It's cool because he might surprise you. I mean, the Broner fight, we knew what was going to happen there. Adrian wasn't going to throw his hands. So anybody that expected differently was crazy. I mean, you might want to, and it's good to kind of speculate, but in reality, since if he doesn't do anything, Pacquiao will find a way. So I don't know if he's in that upper echelon fighters, but I will say this, that I think some of the guys that are not on that, we talked about the three, Spence, talked about Thurman, we talking about Crawford. I'm not sure about those guys. And of course, Thurman wants to fight him because as Thurman sees something and he knows he's older, and it makes it'll be a good win on his record. And if he can destroy or end Manny Pacquiao's career, Thurman's gonna get a lot of love, and I'm not mad for him. That's marketing. That's how you make money. That's how you were the guy that finally put Manny out the pasture. That's a lot of things. So I'm not mad at the man. Make your money, bro. But we all know that when he first said, "Now I want Pacquiao," I was like, "Yeah, okay. Now you're running the Pacquiao, right?
Right.
Easy payday, easy money." So I'm not mad at that. But I will say this though, for guys like Danny Garcia and other guys. Yeah, don't sleep on Manny, because Manny at times, depends on if he really get in shape or whatever and what the night could be, he can make some noise. So it's a feel good story. I'm happy for him, however long as he wants to do it, as long as he doesn't get killed, I'm with it. So but I don't think he's in that even though he looks good and showing you some things. I'll say this very quickly. The fight against Floyd Mayweather let me know he's not Manny Pacquiao anymore. The one that we know. And I never. That was just it. He's not the same guy that I watched fight, Marquez 5 times. He's not the same dude. Not right now.
John, Charles made an interesting point. Is there someone who can retire Manny, or is that possible? Is it just that he's going to have to retire himself? Is it possible that someone just comes in and just takes him apart? And I still think he's quick enough to avoid getting just wiped out. He may get shut out round-wise, but I'm not sure that someone's going to come in and just bam, 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 and go, okay, now you're down and done. Is it possible to retire him, or is it just that he's going to have to say, you know what, I'm going to run for Commonwealth Judge of the USOC or something? I don't know. I mean, where does he go from here? Or can he go from here?
Well, they're matching him very intelligently, obviously. They knew, just like Charles was saying, that Adrian Broner would have had to catch him with a punch, and Adrian doesn't throw punches, as we know, so the likelihood of that was unlikely. But they weren't going to be reckless. If you heard them in the corner, Manny said, I don't want to be reckless, because he's never going to forget what happened to him against Marquez. I mean, he wasn't necessarily being reckless. He was being man. He was being real aggressive. He was going to knock out Marquez. He got knocked out. That when he went down, I thought he might have been dead, to be honest, because he went down, bam!
Right.
And it was like, wow.
Whoa.
That was boxing. What boxing is so incredibly dramatic. He's the best 40-year-old fighter you'll ever see. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, right. He was fighting like a guy in his 30s to me. And Keith Thurman, that fought Josecito Lopez, he better not show up against Manny, because Manny could have a chance. He's a live dog in that fight, no doubt about it. Would he beat him? Nah, I don't think so. And Terence Crawford they'd be close for a while, and then Terence just too young, too mean, too strong. And I don't even want to think of him getting in there with Errol Spence or Danny Garcia, though.
Well,
he's outworked Danny Garcia. But to answer your question, I think someone's going to have to knock him out for him to go. Right. I think that and I don't want to see him get knocked out again. I don't. I like the guy. I admit it. I do. I like him. I think years ago, he was something else, but now he's involved in this. He gives people money, and he's so generous. I love that. I think that's wonderful to do. I don't want to see him on his face again. I don't want to see him on his back. hopefully if he loses a fight, loses a decision like to Keith Thurman, close decision, and he says, okay, that's it, I'm done, I'd be happy with that. But I think he's going to have to be forced to retire, yeah.
Well, I think the thing with him is that he is a smaller guy fighting in a larger division, and he's been able to do that because he's so darn quick and he's so active. So when that goes, that's my fear. Someone says, I can catch him now, and they catch him with a shot or 2 or 5, and round 4 he's done. And like you said, boom, out, over. And that's my fear. But at this point, I don't see that anyone has been able to catch him. And I don't know that anyone in this division is going to be able to just blast him out because he's quick enough. Now, again, I don't know if he's going to beat anybody, the upper echelon guys like we're talking about. But I don't think they're just going to crush him. I think it's going to be, well, this fight he didn't win enough rounds. He wasn't able to land enough punches. He was able to bully around like in the Jeff Horn fight, and he loses the decision. But I don't know that this 40-year-old version of Manny Pacquiao, now maybe 44-year-old version of Manny Pacquiao will be a different story. But right now I just don't see that he's just going to get blasted out. But I don't see that he's going to be able to get that level unless they invent another belt for them to get to, which isn't too far-fetched to think.
Please, no.
Yeah, the silver anniversary plate special belt. So
40-year-old special belt.
Yeah, you know. Okay, we touched on Mikey before, but Mikey Garcia, 39-0, came off a layoff, not necessarily self-imposed, but self-imposed if you want to look at it that way. Has put himself right back in the swing of things. Should he be there? Should he not be there? That's the story. The thought that I had when he came back, I thought, Mikey Garcia, I don't even remember. It just went out of my head that he even existed for the time he was gone. And then he came back, and he's looked pretty good. Can he get himself in this conversation, John, or is he still got a ways to go?
I think the Errol Spence fight is a one-time fight for him as far as a welterweight. I think he knows, obvious like us, that he's not built to be a welterweight. I think no matter what happens, he's going to go back down. They wanted to fight Lomachenko pretty bad, and that was an intriguing fight, Lomachenko and Mikey. That would have been a tremendous fight. But I love his guts. I love his ambition. I love he's trying to find out about himself. Not a lot of guys do that. Guys used to do that before. Years ago, a lot of guys don't like to step up, and this is obviously dangerous. He's not stepping up against a guy that we're all going, he's going to win another title. He's taken on arguably the number 1 guy in the division who could knock him out. So Mikey's got a pair that's huge. I don't think he's a welterweight though. I don't. I think he's built more as a lightweight or even a junior welter at this point. If he loses to Errol, which is pretty likely, I think he goes down. I think it would be foolish to stay in that division, go down, and possibly, I don't know. He's so unpredictable sometimes. I mean, he go back down to junior welterweight or something. Maybe he'd fight. But if we're going to talk about junior welterweight, there's a lot of talent there. I mean, the Rougarou, he got some talent, and Mikey have some problems with the Rougarou. There's a few young guys coming up. Josh Taylor, for example, that have some real ability. So. He's got to be careful what he wishes for, but I don't think he could beat any of the, right off the top of my head, just thinking, Terence, Errol, Keith Thurman. I think they got a little bit more, and they wear him down a little, especially Errol. Errol's so strong that's what's going to be a real problem for Mikey. But, he's loaded with talent, and surprises do happen. But I think if I'm Robert Garcia, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to do this once. See what happens, then we'll go back down to what we think is our more natural weight.
Okay, and Charles, I we've talked about this before with Mikey that that he's maybe biting off more than he can chew as far as moving up. Does it hurt you, or does it hurt you in here to move up, not get the job? I'm not saying he's not going to get the job, but not get the job done, and then go back down to where you were the man. And this was a Pacquiao story for me a few years ago. Okay, let's move up. Let's test the waters. No, let's go back now. Is this something is this a good move for Mikey to move up and see what he's made of? Or does he go up and stay if he wins?
If you win, I mean, you got to think about it. It just kind of opens the door for some more cash. So now you're working in about, what, 3 different weight classes that you can play with and find some money?
Right.
As long as you can make the weight. But I think it's a one-shot deal, like John said. It comes down to them being excited about it and them taking on the challenge and really showing type of fighter Mikey Garcia really is. Because a lot of people know about him, but they don't. So, if you're a boxing purist, you're like, oh, yeah, I know about Mikey Garcia. But a lot of people on the mainstream, because he took the time off, you're like, I really don't know him. Now with Errol Spence on the horizon, you're going to find out about him. More people are going to watch this fight. So I don't think that it really will really hurt him because he's taking a chance. And why not? You want to test yourself. A lot of guys have done that in the past. Roy Jones went out and snuck and stole a heavyweight title because he chose the right dude.
Right, so, right.
No disrespect, but that's what you do. So you take this chance, even if you get beat soundly by Errol Spence Jr., you come back down, and there's money waiting on him. And I think the factor that when he drops back down, he's the bigger guy, which is why everybody knows, and he's salivating because he really thinks he can put some damage to Lomachenko. And Lomachenko's a favorite of a lot of people. And he's like, yeah, if I lose this, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to give you the business. I mean, so I think they're excited about that. And the Garcia family, I like the way that they go about the business. Even when they lose, they kind of like, okay, well, we lost. But, yeah, we're still in it. So I think they're just taking a chance. It's a hell of a payday. All eyes are going to be on it. And if you lose, that's boxing, right?
Right.
That's what I don't know, even with any real serious significant fighters, they take chances. You look at Ali when Frazier took him out. He came back, and what made the story even greater is the comeback he made. Because there's no way in hell he's supposed to fight George Foreman. Right. He got in there and told you, like, oh my God. Oh.
Beat him. Yeah, then beat him.
Why would you do that? Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it made the story even more, his legacy even greater. So I think Mikey Garcia is kind of watching it. Let's take a chance, man. See what happens. It don't work. I heal up, get that big cash payday, and Lomachenko, we coming, baby. So yeah, I think it's just good all the way around.
All right. Well, let's take a look at if I can get to. See, I told you the graphics were going to be perfect. Shawn Porter, 29-2-1, is back in the. I won't say he was ever out of the story, but he's back in the fray again. And I've mentioned before that the Porter-Thurman fight that I saw I thought was one of the best fights I've seen in the last decade. It was really fantastic the way not only the fight but the lead up and the way they carried themselves. So. And as we're talking about, Spence and Bud Crawford and those guys, does Shawn Porter belong in the mix, Charles, or is that just not quite there? As John said, he's a great athlete. Is he a great fighter right now?
I think he is climbing. He's climbing because the win over Danny Garcia showed you like. I got a little bit more in my toolbox than y'all may think.
You thought I did,
I'm not that my head down, move forward, Philadelphia type guy that you thought I was. I see something I have, as John mentioned, that he's such a great athlete. I can be more versatile. And granted, we know he's a tough guy. He's like a strong bull. But the one thing too about the Keith Thurman fight that I found interesting was, as you mentioned about toughness. I'll say this: Keith Thurman, for a while, was going along saying he was one time when he was. I mean, he was. If you step to him, he was like, whoop, whoop. He's like, I told y'all. Right. But yeah. But on the other end, I'm telling you, Shawn Porter made him back up, and that's the first time I ever saw that.
Oh, Keith Thurman back up, exactly.
Yeah, he made him back up, and I was like, "You backing up?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm backing up." And for him to do that was like, man, he's like, "I told you." I'm going to be right in your chest, and I'm coming for you. You got to do everything it's going to take everything you have to beat me. And then when he made the switch over to boxing and showed a lot, that showed me so much more. I thought he was a one-trick pony. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was that guy, put his head down, come forward, swing wild. But when he became more of a technician in the fight versus, against Danny Garcia, I was like, oh, they on to something. So I think he's working his way up. I think that's a fight that Thurman is going to put off as much as far as he can.
Right.
Because I'm just saying, from the physical aspect of it. So I think that's a fight he really doesn't want, but I think he's working his way up. I think he would even prefer to fight Errol Spence Thurman, that is, than he would Porter. Porter is a monster, man. And now he adds a little something to it, like he switched off on Danny Garcia, where he boxed him, and then every once in a while he come in and give it that blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, oh, shit, wait a minute. So I think
how do I deal with this, right?
He's more of a dangerous opponent that's on the ride than most people give me credit for. So I wouldn't say he's like right there. And I'm going to just say this real quick. I know we're throwing Terence Crawford up there. I mean, I think he's in the conversation. I know we're going to talk about him, but let's not give him his trophy yet, bro. He still got a little something to prove. I know that's for later.
Well, that we call that in the business a teaser.
Yeah.
John, what do you think about Shawn Porter? Because it's just he's the guy that I think he's the wild card in this.
Charles said it all really well. I think Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford, to me, are, if it's possible, because all boxers are very determined, but those guys, Crawford can be mean when he has to, which I absolutely love, and Shawn Porter is so determined. If you know what you're getting, I'm thinking, if I'm a fighter, I'm 2 weeks out, I'm going, well, I'm getting ready to go to hell here, because that's where he's going to take you. I mean, he's going to take you to hell, and you're going to have to be willing to go into hell with him to beat him.
Right.
You know,
and now he's going to take you to hell and box you too.
Yeah, and now you're like, well, wait, if he starts boxing me, what am I going to do then? You know, so I admire him so much, and his father. You know, again, we just had them on. We had Ken on. We actually did an interview with Ken, and Ken's a tough guy too. I mean, mentally, these guys are really. I'm not talking about just physically. These are really tough guys, and they think about what's going on and what went wrong here, and why we didn't do this right or whatever. And he was telling a story about how he had Angel Garcia all intimidated, and I said, I thought he looked intimidated, and Ken said, you saw right. So I thought that was their interview. But Shawn is just tremendous. I'm always going to have him there because like I said, you could never count him out. He might not be as talented as Errol Spence or Terence Crawford, but he's got so much determination that he's going to bring himself up just because he's so driven to win. So he's incredible. I really like that.
And it's what we were talking about earlier, that the fight game in itself is something where it's not just because you have the prettiest swing, or not just because that you're able to putt the best, or that you shoot the three better. There's more to it than just the sum of the parts. There's more to it than just, I'm going to be the most talented guy out here. That doesn't always carry over. You've got to be able to do more. Now, if you're the most talented guy and you have that extra something, then you're one of those guys that, you don't lose. But there's got to be something else there. And again, I go back to the Porter-Thurman fight. Like Charles said, I'd never seen Keith Thurman take a step backwards. And he took several steps backwards in that fight. And they were because he was trying to get out of the way. It's because he was being moved backwards. Oh,
yeah. He knew what he was facing.
Yeah. And there's a difference between moving backwards to get position and the better, or just getting moved backwards.
Distance.
Yeah. And Shawn Porter moved him backwards. So, and I think the last one we have on here on our fun graphics set here is Terence Crawford. And the question that everybody has is, what has he done to deserve this? Has he done anything to deserve this? I've seen enough fights. I think he has. But again, he's got to prove it in the ring. So, John, does he deserve this elevated status? Or is it just, you fought people and they didn't show up?
I think he does. I do. I think he does. I think he's undefeated, obviously. He's exciting. He's got a big fan base. Not that should mean anything to him as a fighter, but he's been pushed a few times in fights. He's won. He's a fun fighter. And like I said, he's got that mean streak that makes him. He's got that kind of a baby face, but then he's got that mean where you can just see him kind of grit down and go, okay, now. I got you now, buddy. You were talking all that crap about me. I'm going to make you pay.
Right.
And that's boxing. You know, he's not mad, but he's just determined, like I was saying about Shawn Porter. He's got an edge, and that's so important in that sport. And so, yeah, I think he deserves it. I think actually his fight with Amir Khan is going to be very interesting because Khan is going to be so fast. I don't think he's ever faced anybody as fast as Amir Khan. So it probably knock him out because we know about the whiskers with Amir Khan, but Amir is a live underdog in that fight, but Terence, yes, I do believe he deserves to be right up there because he's tremendous.
And the thing about it is, if he doesn't get the job done, throw his mom in there. She'll take care of business.
That's right. That's right. Wow.
You know, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry, it just came out.
But it's true.
Charles, and I know that you've kind of touted Terence Crawford. So, what do you think that he brings to the table that the other 6 or 7 we've talked about don't?
I think, and I don't really. It's kind of hard to put this in words, but I like his heart and his spirit, man. I do, and I think that when he was talking off the ring with Errol Spence Jr., he was literally like, "Man, I'm about to when we get in the ring." And you're like, dude, you're smaller than me. He's like, look, I'm trying to tell you, when I see you, I see how you work. You don't, he's like, you're out of shape a little bit. You're a little puffy, a little fat. You come here with me like that, I'm going to get with you. And I'm like, dude, you haven't really had any strong 147 performances. You still had to work your way up. And he's like, no. So I think it's heart, but it's also his skill level. He has the ability. He doesn't wait. He throws hands. He throws combination. He rolls. He moves. It's almost like he has that way where you want to fight clean and nice, like we're fighting in the Olympic point system, or you want to get mean and nasty with it, we can go there. I can see him fighting in the street. I'm serious. I can see him laying hands on somebody in the street and winning convincingly. So I think that goes a long way with him because now I think he also has the ability to he understands where he's at now. I think before out there in Nebraska, he's fighting out there and little small time fights and everybody's telling him how great he is. And now it's like, yeah, I'm kind of getting this now. I see how you're supposed to act on the next level. So I think he's rising there. And I just think overall, the only thing that really holds him back for me right now is maybe the size. Because he's going to fight against bigger dudes that have the ability that he has and may match it. And I think that's where his heart comes in. But I think he's going to win a lot of fights because of the fact that to me, he brings a lot. He has like the total package.
Well, and the way I see it, and I think you hit it right on the head, the size can be an issue if he lets it be an issue. I don't think that you're going to be able to pressure him into bullying him, making the size an issue. It's going to have to come from him not doing what he does. And if he allows himself to get sucked into that, I'm just going to get grappling, a grappling kind of fight, but that's on him. I don't think that'll be on the opponent. That'll be on him. Like you said, Amir Khan is going to face some speed. So that's something where I think he has the ability to dictate a fight more so than anyone else in this division. So he can dictate how he's going to fight and how the other guy's going to fight, where the other ones are kind of, okay, we'll see how it goes. We'll kind of feel it out. He's the one guy says, and as you said, one trick pony, this is how I'm going to fight, and this is how you're going to have to defend. And I don't think the rest of the guys, which maybe it's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, I have options because I'm that talented. Maybe, again, we said Shawn Porter, we thought he would not have options, and he showed options. We haven't seen that Terence Crawford has had to show something else because he hasn't had to show something else. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's just the way I see that. So
I have seen him have to adapt, though, Frank, and he can do that. He changes to southpaw and he does things that that I've seen him where he was in a very even fight or whatever, and even losing a fight, and then he made a little change, and boom, he started cracking the guy. So he's got that IQ, that really good fighter IQ that he can adapt, and that is so important in there.
And I'm forgetting the fight that I saw. I still don't, and I'm sure it is to him, which is the most important thing. I couldn't determine the rhyme or reason for when he went southpaw to orthodox and back. I couldn't figure out why or when what the reason was. Just suddenly like, and now I'm going to change. And it seemed to be the right move at the right time, but it didn't look like there was anything that dictated that he would do it. It was just like he looked at the clock and went, okay, there's a minute 23 left in the round. Now it's time to go southpaw. And now it's time to go orthodox. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying there's a feel to it for him. And so far it seemed to work.
Yeah.
You know, and
he's something. You know, in the ring, it's a lot different than us, you know, watching from the outside. And he senses something. I think in the beginning he just likes to see how the guy adapts to him going southpaw, and then later on the fight he does it because he does it well. It's, again, back to Andre Ward. He used to do that.
Right.
And he told me I had a feeling when the guy wasn't going to expect it. So when he wasn't going to expect it, I was going to turn and I'd crack him. And it's just that brain again, and that boxer's brain, and they're like geniuses when it comes to that stuff.
Well, guys, I think we've kind of got a handle on the welters now. I'm not sure which one we'll do next, but I think we've got an idea if there's such a thing as getting a handle on it. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here to close the show a little bit. Just kind of this. I was thinking about this as we were talking. Best welterweight fight you've ever seen? And there's so many. Let's put it this way: the best one that pops into your head right away.
Well, I have one because I'm so old, but it's just because I didn't get to mention him. 1977, Armando Muniz against Carlos Palomino, and that was because Armando Muniz was another guy that I greatly admired, mostly because he didn't have that talent that a lot of these guys. He was the polar opposite in a sense of Muhammad Ali. He was shorter than everybody, had short arms, but I always pulled for him. His 15-round war with Carlos Palomino from the greatest venue I ever went to, the Olympic in Los Angeles, even though it broke my heart when Armando got stopped in the 15th. But that one pops into my head. And then I'm thinking Sugar Ray Leonard against Roberto Duran in 1980 in Canada pops into my head. I'm sure there's something I'm missing, but you asked what first popped into my head, right. But that was the one from 1977 that probably because I'm biased with Armando Muniz.
Charles?
Definitely Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns.
Yeah.
Man, there was so much build up on that. The Motor City Cobra being from Detroit, and then Sugar Ray Leonard. And I mean, I was a huge Thomas Hearns fan. I mean, I lived and died, with Thomas Hearns. And I just thought that his power, he finally was going to, shut the pretty boy up and put him in his place. And Sugar Ray Leonard showed me great toughness.
Right.
Because the way that even Hearns started to fatigue, and a lot of it had to do with heart too, how Sugar Ray Leonard at the end was able to catch him. I mean, he literally, to me, they can say what they want to about those other eye injuries he suffered. It was Thomas Hearns that really, truly, I think, damaged Sugar Ray Leonard. I don't think he was ever the same physically. And Thomas Hearns showed you how that was. And with that being said, just that fight alone was so great because it showed you how great Sugar Ray Leonard could be, but also showed you that Thomas Hearns, if he just had a little oomph left, he actually could have been considered one of the greatest of all time. So, yeah, it was an action-packed fight. You watch it again, you're like, oh, man, that was great. So, yeah, that fight in particular.
Well, and I was going to go the same place because that was the fight where you went, okay, you've got these two completely different characters. So you got Pretty Boy over here, then you got the 6'9" welterweight. Like this doesn't make sense. How does he make weight? There's just no way. We're the same height, and I'm 130 pounds heavier than him. This isn't possible. And then you've got them going to a place where they shouldn't have gone to, where you didn't think Sugar Ray Leonard had that ability because that's not who he was. At least that's not the persona that he projected. And like you said, Hearns hurt him more than he's probably ever been hurt, and it continued on later in life. And then the adding to that, nobody gets knocked out better than Thomas Hearns, or worse, depending upon how you look at it. It's just like, I'm going to give it my all. I am exhausted, and that was the last punch I was going to take, and I'm just going to spin around the ring because I'm done. There's nothing else I can do. So in that knockout, I was like, I am through. And you could see he put everything he had into that fight, and that was it. That was the one that popped into my head. When you're looking at that era, did they move up to junior middle? That was the one at the welterweight fight that I thought was great. Now, I'm going to ask the other question here, and this one may even draw a more weird response. What's the most, I'm not going to say worst fight, but the most overhyped fight at welterweight that you saw or that you can recall?
Ooh. Wow. John, you go first. I need a moment.
I need a minute. I got to take a knee.
Overhyped fight that didn't live up to what a lot of people thought? Well, that's obvious. It was mentioned earlier, but I never thought it would. And we're talking about Mayweather and Pacquiao. I always thought, I got in all kinds of trouble with a bunch of Filipino boxing people because in 2008 or 9 or 10 or something, I wrote an article and I said, Floyd Mayweather would beat Manny Pacquiao every day of the week. It's not just about whatever you see, it's styles. And Floyd Mayweather is just better. I mean, unless he catches Floyd, which obviously, as we know, didn't happen very often, he's gonna beat him. So here's this huge buildup, and I remember I was there, and I'm thinking, as the fight's going on, I'm going, well, it's going just about the way I expected. People afterward are moaning and groaning and complaining about it and everything, but I wasn't surprised. That's exactly, and I'm not trying to sound like a butthead here. It was just the way it went and it would have been Floyd. Manny might have had a little more energy, maybe more when he was younger, but so would have Floyd.
Right.
So,
that's the part everyone forgets. Floyd would have been younger too, right?
Exactly. People forget that too. So Floyd would have beat him, like I said. So in that sense, as far as hype, and then people, all I heard for weeks of people that know me, God, what a terrible fight, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, it wasn't the worst fight I've seen. I've seen worse. But when you hype something like that, it almost always is going to fail, unless it's Ali and Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. Charles, what do you think? You've had a chance to, you took a knee, you had a chance to think about it.
I appreciate it. First of all, let me make sure I don't get a bunch of hate mail. I realized that Thomas Hearns was not the Cobra. He's actually the hitman. So no disrespect to anybody. We'll make sure we get that right. But in regards to the fight, or most overhyped fight, there's a lot out there, but I'm not sure if this fight really was welterweight or was it a little higher. But for me, because a lot of people swore that this was finally where this guy was going to get caught and he's going to get he's going to get what was coming to him. Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo Alvarez.
Okay.
For so many people that all Canelo's here and he's going to show you and young Canelo this and that. And Floyd was masterful in that fight. Masterful. I've never seen Canelo take that much punishment except when he fought Triple G. But masterful, where I'll never forget when Canelo throws the punch and he hits the ropes and Floyd looks back at the ring, at the ropes like, you okay? It's funny, they hit me. Are you okay? Yeah. So, yeah. And I think that alone, I think that just showed it was a lot of hype around it. Even though Canelo was quite young, he was like the people's champion. And they were pumping him up, and Floyd finally gonna get his. Floyd's like, all right, y'all been sitting there how long? And still here. So yeah, for me, that was a fight perhaps that was the most overrated.
Okay, now I'm gonna make this complete. The circle's gonna be complete. Mine's also a Floyd fight, the Ricky Hatton fight. And you know where I'm going with this.
There's only one Ricky Hatton.
5 million Brits came over and drank every drop of Guinness in the Western United States, and everyone that came over thought he had a chance. And I mean, he had done what he had to do to get to that point. And we've talked about this when you see like I'm thinking of Joe Calzaghe or Felix Sturm or somebody who has done what they've done across the pond, but it doesn't translate. You just don't know. The Klitschko brothers, for example. You just don't know until you see it. You saw Ricky Hatton, you went, well, he's doing what he has to do, but is he at that level? And then as the fight gets closer and the odds change and the people get more excited, he's got a chance. I think he's going to win. He's going to dominate Floyd. And it was like, oops. Yeah. That didn't happen. And again, that's the beauty of this, because you can watch all the film you want, but you really can't compare. A 96-mile-an-hour fastball is a 96-mile-an-hour fastball no matter who it's coming from. So you can say, I've been able to hit 96 miles an hour before, I should be able to hit this one. Now, if you start throwing curveballs and all that, I understand the difference in that. But you get an idea. But in boxing, you got to prove it in the ring. And the thing about that fight showed, you can say what you want. You could have been 33-0 and fought whoever you did before that, but there's only one Floyd Mayweather Jr. And when you find out that that's who you're up against, it's a different story. So that to me, and I agree with what you guys came up with, but that to me was one where you went, wait a second. Now, I was going to go with the Arturo Gatti Floyd Mayweather fight that Charles laughed at me about when I said, I think Gotti's got a chance.
I'm still laughing.
Yeah, but that one wasn't as hyped. I might have been one of 5 people that thought Gotti had a chance. But
maybe less, Frank.
Yeah.
And I'm Italian. Yeah. I knew Gotti was.
Oh. See, because of the Mickey Ward thing that we'll talk about later, I thought,
animal there.
If he was able to survive that, well, that's like getting from single A to triple A and then trying to make the All-Star game. Yeah, it was. Yeah, but that wasn't as high. But I think the Ricky Hatton fight, I think a lot of people really thought that Ricky Hatton had a chance and wasn't close. So,
like you said, if I can add one thing, like you mentioned about the overhypeness of Floyd versus Pacquiao. And the one thing I found which was hilarious to me is when after Floyd fought Marquez, and Marquez had no interest in the rematch.
Right.
He let you know straight out, I've been in the ring with both of them. There's no way in hell he got a chance.
Yeah.
He just and Marquez is a tough dude, man.
Oh, yeah.
He would fight anybody. Yeah. But when it came to Floyd, he was like, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to go back down where I belong.
Yeah.
That was
for the payday. That's how it was.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And that'll be another show as far as not just the pound for pound, but just the idea of who was the most dominant or most dominant fighters and that you didn't have a chance against. And again, you get to that point where everyone's good, but there's a certain level. And what we've said here is that, and I don't think we've said it definitively yet, but, that one guy, love him or hate him, Floyd Mayweather was a son of a gun. And, retired, I don't know if he's retired yet, but he's undefeated for a reason. You couldn't get to him. And the beauty of this division is that I don't think we're saying that about any of these guys right now, that they are invincible, and I think that's a good thing, but also it can be a good thing that you have someone that's invincible and you're going to try and knock them off the perch. But I think we've got a 4 or 5 guys out here we're talking about that any given day, it's a possibility.
Yeah, and Frank, anybody who, even if a lot of people dislike Floyd Mayweather, right? But if you're honest, you could see his brilliance.
Right.
You don't have to like him.
Right.
You don't even have to like his style. People complain again he was boring and he wasn't as aggressive as he was when he was younger and all this. But if you were honest, you saw. I mean, I saw a few of his fights and I just loved the way he threw the lead right hand because again, Muhammad Ali threw that lead right hand right, bam.
Right.
And Floyd would do the same thing, and he was an artist. He was an artiste about it. So people can hate him all they want, but again, if they really sit back, if they watch him or think about it, they have to, unless they're just so stubborn, they're morons, they have to admit this guy was a great fighter, period.
And I think that's what we're trying to do with this. We're trying to get people to understand more than just, okay, it's out there, it's been hyped, let's go. Getting people to understand or trying to help people understand the essence of what makes a good fight and good fighters. And then what are you looking for? And to appreciate that. Again, I think we've covered a couple of different ways of looking at how these guys go about their business. And I hope that helps people out because, like I said, you're looking at Bud Crawford, for example. I'm watching here to see when does he change, what does he change, why does he switch from southpaw to orthodox, what is he doing, how does he take people apart? And we were talking about how a fight is more cerebral than you might want to think it is. Who's got a chance to take somebody apart upstairs before they actually take them apart with their gloves. So that's kind of the way I want to look at it. So, all right, guys, we've gone about 45 minutes over. So, but that's the way we do things around here. So I appreciate it. I hope the new graphics actually worked out. If not, then I'll stop using it. So we'll see how that works out. Where do we want to go next? We've got a slew of divisions. What do you think?
Well, let me jump in. We have to do something when Canelo fights Danny Jacobs, because I'm looking forward to that one. It's a few months down the road, and that's the middleweight. So I'm looking forward to that one incredibly. And then there's so much we can talk about Golovkin and all kinds of things. So that would be fun to just keep moving up. Charles, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. I mean, because I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when that fight comes up with Daniel Jacobs, man. Trying to tell you, because everybody swore that Golovkin was going to take him down. I mean, just put him to sleep. And he's been through a lot. So I'm interested to see how that works out and see what happens. So I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
I think that if I'm doing this correctly, we may be able to get some video to some of these things, and we can kind of pick a few segments apart with that as well. So I'll keep working on the tech aspect of it, and we can talk over the fight as we're going and see what happens. Charles, tell the people where they can find you, because there's a lot of eyes there.
Well, I'm not like you, but I'm working on it. You can officially check me out on the Reality Sport